Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. As you all notice, I've been talking about some things that may not be the norm, but it is, I believe, what the Lord has laid on my heart. And so I have to speak on these things. And if you know my channel, I do speak about the Lord here, but I've also always touched on everyday topics. The other day I did a video and we're talking about abortions. And again, starting off, I am not going to knock any woman who's had to make choices she did not want to make. There are certain circumstances and situations where this can happen. Women are faced with many things in their lives where they may make a decision that they regret, felt they had no choice, or that was the only way they were going to be able to move on and do the things that they needed to do. I'm not going to knock any woman for that. And so we're going to leave that there. This message is really about to really address those who get abortions as if they're going to get, some unwanted fat removed from their body, or they're going through a drive-through, or, they're just going to go get a mani-pedi. They think of themselves. They think of, I don't want my body to get bigger. But they don't want to use birth controls. They don't want to use condoms. They don't want to abstain. They don't want to do any of those things. They want the pleasures. They want to do what they want to do. And in their mind, it's like, I can always get an abortion. And so one of the things that happens, guys, with this is we're often told that, a baby at a certain age, it's not really life. They're not considered to be human yet, but they are. And one of the things, the reason why we are told that lie is to dehumanize a child. As I told you, when people like Hitler, when he wanted to exterminate the Jews, when he wanted to exterminate the homosexuals, when he wanted to exterminate and get rid of people who had handicaps and people who were of a different nation that he did not see as pure white, he had to dehumanize them and say they're less than, so they can be justified in doing the atrocities and the horrific and grisly things that were done. When slave masters wanted to, when they're bringing up their young sons and young daughters, the children may have a heart and feel sorry for the slave. They had to dehumanize that black man, that black woman, that family, to say they're less than, to say that they're monkeys. And so this was the way that they justified atrocities. When Native Americans were moved away and their country and land were stolen, even though they were flourishing and doing fine before the Europeans came and the colonizers came, they had to say, they're barbaric. They began to look at things about them and say they're less than, to justify why we need to take things from you, why we can kill you, why we can hold you captive. And truly, they wanted the Native Americans to be slaves. They used to try to use them out in the field, but the Native Americans, they did not do very well in the sun and the heat. And so they found that black people, Africans, were more resilient in the sun. So they put them to do some other things. But my point is, and we know there have been other slaves in other countries and nations, people are mistreated, just like a white person can mistreat and abuse another white person because they look at them and say, they're less than. Whenever in terms of abuse and doing wrong to people, the first thing people want to do is to dehumanize them and find things that's flawed about them and to say they're not human. And so it's the same thing when it comes to the fetus. If we can say that it's not a human, then we can feel justified in killing the child. And ironically, within the first 4 weeks of the development, the neural tube, the neural tube is one of the first thing that comes into place. And this is where the heart begins to bud, as well as parts of the brain. And the last time I checked, you and I cannot live without our heart and our brain. So just because a child is not completely formed and does not quite look human yet, the two things that we need for life, the heart and the brain, are being developed. Perhaps not all 4 chambers of the heart just yet, perhaps not all parts of the brain just yet, but nevertheless, those 2 main parts are coming through at the very beginning. When you first discover you're pregnant, you look in, you see the little heart beating, okay, inside the sac. So this idea that the child has no life is just a cop out. And one of the things that I always say to you guys as well is this: death is death, is death. No matter what phase of life that person is in, it's death. You know, as I said in the other video, we can watch videos of people being massacred and killed, and someone being shot and killed and pushed on the train tracks and beaten, and someone's breaking into someone's house. And we hear about things, and we see the carnage of war and people laying in the streets from World War I and II and Vietnam. We can watch these videos. We can see what's going on in Ukraine, and we can say it's horrible. Something needs to be done. And these are adults, but no one thinks about the war within the womb. Because you don't see the actual carnage, because abortion does not let you see what's happening really. You don't see the fetus in the tube. You don't see them sucked in, being sucked out. You don't see them being disintegrated. We don't see that, right? And so because we don't see it, we think, oh, there's nothing wrong with it. Just because the realities of death is hidden from you, or all you see is it comes out as a period, it passes as a lump of blood, it does not negate that this was a death. And because you're not seeing it 3D, high definition, and all the details of it, if it was nothing, and if it's nothing, then we would not need to intervene to stop it. Do you understand? If this was not life and it's nothing, then we would not need to intervene. Doctors will not need to intervene. There'll be no need to do all that they do to stop it. It is a life. It's not a tumor. The baby's not a tumor. It's a life. And they're not given a chance. That child there's no match for the instrumentations. There's no match when they're being delivered, partial birth, and being killed. And why? Why do you think this is happening? Because the bodies of babies, they're especially when they're partial births, it can be used for many different things, to include, medical, medical exploration, or for medicine, to not only for medicine, guys, but allegedly even being used in some of our immunizations. That's allegedly. I say that allegedly, okay? So there are a lot of horrors and things that happens, and so sometimes, because there are benefits to baby parts, then it's done, depending on the age of the child. And of course, as I said before, just because you don't see it, just because you're not seeing in detail what's going on, that's why they won't ever just put it on a monitor and let you see what's going on. Most mothers who gets on that table, they don't see that. They just feel the tug and the pain and the cramps. But had they put it on a monitor and let you see exactly what the doctor's doing, I think our minds will be changed. I believe society's minds will be changed about it. Just because you don't see the process does not make it any less death. And so, as I said, dehumanizing to justify it. And then just because it's not in your face and you don't see it, we'll blow it off. And sometimes that's a protective mechanism in the mind of any mother who has to do that, because in your mind you don't want to think about that, and that's understandable. And the reason why you have to block it is because that fetus was never just a thing. It was a part of you. And so you don't want to think of that. But one of the things that I would say, there's so many options. There's so many options. As a believer in the Lord, no, we don't believe in abortion and different things and sex before marriage and all that stuff. But what I'm saying is, nevertheless, I am aware of the options: abstinence, condoms, birth controls, adoption. But there are people that live their lives and they're thinking this: I don't want to take birth controls. I can't remember and I can't afford it. I don't have the medical insurance or whatever for it, okay? I don't want to use condoms because even though you can get them for free, no, because he doesn't like how it feels and I don't like how it feels and we can't really feel anything. Oh, I'm allergic to condoms. Okay, they have non-latex condoms. Oh, well, no, we don't like how that feels. Adoption, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get fat. I don't want to go through the process. I don't want to do this. So the option in the mind is, oh, I can just go and put myself under anesthesia, local or general anesthesia. I can have my cervix cracked open. I can have the baby sucked out, down in a tube, bleed for a while, and, know that there could be some risk to myself and the baby. Do you see how far gone that thinking is, ladies? And one thing that I did share is that if you touch your top lip, right under your nose, the top of your lip, there's this little dip here. I still forgot the name of this little dip that's right on the top of our lip. Well, remember, if you ever seen a baby, an embryo, how it's in that little weird, probably in the first few weeks, 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, it's got this face that looks like it's split in the middle. The face is still forming. And from that little split in the face, and our face comes forward and it forms, we get this little dip right above our lip. And you know what this needs to remind you of? If you go and touch the very top of your lip, this little dip that's on the top under your nose, that reminds us that that fetus was you, and you are that fetus. It wasn't just a thing. That fetus was you, and you were that fetus. And we were given a chance at life to develop and walk around and talk. And so we should never dehumanize that child, that baby. Because the fetus is you, and you were the fetus. And you are alive and well. Again, I'm not trying to put the weight and burden on anybody who's had to make choices that was painful for them and their bad memories. I get it. I get it. But those who are callous and careless and selfish and just loose and just want to keep going and getting abortion after abortion, it's absolutely wrong, and it's murder.